I am somewhere between wanting to fall asleep and wanting to cry. The very first guy I talked to, he wasn't super open to start with. He was kind of gruff, in fact. And when I started bringing up the idea of God, he really was pushing back against that. He had done Teen Challenge back in the day, which is a Christian-based rehab program, wasn't into it. He felt like it was just really shoved down his throat. And I got this very clear sense, okay, I can't just like dive into spiritual things with this guy because he'll push back too much. We started talking and I spent the next hour mostly listening to him. It was probably 90% plus of him talking. He grew up with a dad who was an alcoholic and used to beat him and his mom. His mom was an alcoholic and she died of the disease. And now he's an alcoholic. And just today, earlier today, he was out on this hill thinking about, is there any point to life? Like, should he just commit suicide? And he kind of didn't feel like that was the way, but he really didn't see any point to his life at all. Like, why would he try and get himself help? So his plan was he was going to get himself really drunk. He'd have to get an ambulance. They would take him to the hospital because he was so sick. And then eventually he'd get into detox and then rehab and then sober living. And through my listening, I wasn't even saying anything, but his heart was softening. He's not religious, but he's spiritual, and he believes in a higher power. He believes in a creator. And so I said, you know, I think there really is a point to life. He's like, what's that? I said, it's to get to know the creator. And he said, I like the way you said that. And he started turning around even more. I started talking with him more about how he can share his problems with the creator. He can talk with the creator. And he's like, yeah, you know, I do that some already, actually. And he's talking about these times when he's talked with God. And pretty soon I shared with him about how, you know, I think the creator is kind of like an author. You know, he's writing the book about how everything is going on. And it's interesting because he actually wrote himself into the story. And through that, this guy pieced together that this was about Jesus. And he was okay with that. So the conversation is going on. And by the end, God had changed his heart. He wasn't gruff anymore. He was actually very open. And he was thanking me. He was so glad I had talked to him. He really wanted my phone number. I gave him my card. He was seeing how there really is a point to his life now. In fact, he had swung completely the other side on the pendulum. He was saying, you know, I'm going to fight for myself. You know what? Because it's worth it. And I'm not going to give up. And I might even steal to do that because I know it's wrong. And I'm sorry about that. But this is all worth it. And it was like, I wasn't even offended or pushing back at that at all because he had swung the entire different direction with his outlook on life. And that was the Lord just working through me, mostly through me not even talking. Alcoholism, I believe, is at least in part a spiritual problem. And I know I don't want to get weird on this and everything, but there's something spiritual going on if someone's trusting in alcohol for their life. And I really believe that was going on here with this guy. I don't know the exact nature of how that played out, but I noticed when he took a drink partway through the conversation, it was like he was a big step down in terms of how clear his mind was. So he was raising the bottle again partway through, and I just started praying against a spirit of alcoholism. And he would raise this bottle, and then he would kind of lower it as I'm praying. And he would raise it again, and he'd kind of have it closer to his face, and then he would set it down. I just keep praying against the spirit of alcoholism in him. And he finally set it down for a good while. And then towards the end of the conversation, I see him pick it up again. I'm like, God, I just rebuke a spirit of alcoholism in Jesus' name. I'm praying this all under my breath, so it's not just audible in the conversation. But he finally brings it up to his lips and he takes a drink. And I'm like, God, what's going on here? And about a minute later, he throws it all up. And, you know, I'm trying to help him wipe his mouth off and stuff. And, you know, it wasn't the most pleasant thing, but I really wanted to just care for this guy. And he didn't end up taking that step down in sobriety as long as I kept praying against the spirit of alcoholism. I left him and he was so grateful. He actually kissed my hand as I was leaving. After being through all of these amazing, intense spiritual encounters, and that wasn't even all of them that happened today, but I'm just so amazed at what God did and kind of tired because of just the intensity of it, but so thankful. And so, you guys, God is moving in this city so much. Keep praying for us here. And as he opens the door for you, keep sharing, because this is such a wonderful thing to be a part of.